Thank you, everyone, so much for joining us today. We're really looking forward to sharing some information with you, and we hope that you're going to find this extremely useful. Sarah, can you go to the next slide, please? So, of course, we always have to have the safe harbor slide where we mentioned that there could be some forward-looking statements made during this webinar, but they are not to be taken as fact or a commitment to what's coming in the future. It's just one of those things the lawyers like us to say. Next slide, please. And before we get started and before I introduce our speaker today, I just want to emphasize that we have saved time for Q&A at the end of the webinar, so you'll have plenty of time to ask your questions. Feel free to start throwing those into the Q&A function as the webinar is going on. If you have very specific questions, we may answer those offline in the Q&A feature, just so because it may not be a question that relates to the rest of the group. Otherwise, we'll probably hold the rest of those questions for the end to go over those with the group. But we really encourage you to put those Q&A into that function because we capture all of those and try to make sure that all of those are answered when we send out our email with the information about where to find the webinar. And if you have them in the chat, they might get missed. So please make sure you use the Q&A. Also, as many of you have asked, yes, the presentation will be recorded, and we share this on our ServiceNow community site. And also we have a YouTube channel for our onboarding welcome webinars, where we will also have a recording. And last but not least, after the event, we'll be sending you a survey, and we really encourage you to fill that out. This is the first time we're running this webinar series. And so we will be looking to do continuous improvement, and we really look forward to seeing what comments and suggestions you have to make this webinar better. And without further ado, because I've already been talking long enough and I know you want to get down to the meat of the topic here, I will next introduce Sarah Lindsay, who will be our speaker today.
Right. Thank you so much, Britta. I really appreciate it. Let me get to our next slide here. And with that, let's get started. So as Britta mentioned, my name is Sarah Lindsay. I've been working in the training department at ServiceNow for over 9 years. So enterprise adoption strategy is my passion, and that's why I'm so excited that I get to share that with all of you today. I've also brought along a team of experts from across the training business here at ServiceNow, including some fellow training solution consultants. That's Brian and Helen. I have 2 customer success specialists. We have Lorraine and Alicia. And then last but not least, we have Gurdeep, who's our senior manager of customer and technical training delivery. And so they are all going to be hard at work answering your questions in the Q&A today throughout the session. So please don't hesitate to ask away, but as Britta mentioned, just please remember to use that Q&A feature. So let's start with a quick poll. You're going to see that poll pop up on your screen here. And I'm wondering if we have any ServiceNow certified users in this session. And if so, I would love for you to put in the chat what certifications you hold. If you don't have any certifications yet, or you're not sure what I'm talking about, don't worry at all. That's okay too. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. So let's give everyone a second. See lots of certs coming in the chat, a lot of CSA, a lot of certified application developer, some certified implementation specialists, which is great. Love to see that coming through. While those answers are coming in, one stat that I wanted to share is that 82% of professionals believe that certifications increase your value as a job candidate. And of the certified users that we've polled, 90% of them had employers who contributed to the cost of that certification, because certifications have benefits both for you as the employee, but also for your employer. All right, so I'm going to end the poll here and taking a look at it. It looks like we have a good chunk of people who do have a ServiceNow certification, and you can see some examples of that in the chat, but also folks who maybe don't know about our certification programs or don't yet have a certification. So I'm excited to talk to you a little bit more about that today. I'll share those results there. So jumping into exactly what we're going to be talking about today, we're going to start with RiseUp with ServiceNow. What is it, and why does it matter to you? Next, we'll look at the learning journey from an individual learning perspective. What can you personally do today to start building your ServiceNow skills as well as your ServiceNow career? And then lastly, I'll look at learning from the perspective of your company, your organization. So for those of you who are on the call today who are responsible for managing training for your team or your company, this section is going to be the key. And I hope that leaving here today, everyone will take an action on what you've learned. So I'm going to suggest one or more actions that you're going to see on the right there, depending on what your individual priorities are. So let's get started now with, what is RiseUp with ServiceNow? Well, to answer that question, I actually want to start with, why RiseUp with ServiceNow? Why now? Industry studies and listening to the voices of our customers, so your voices, tells us that jobs are changing. The skills that we have today are not the skills that we're going to need tomorrow. And this matters both to you as an individual when you look to grow your own career, but it also matters to you as an organization and whether you'll have the talent that you need to maximize your ServiceNow investment. To future-proof that ServiceNow investment, we need candidates who are different, and we need to empower those candidates with the right ServiceNow skills. And that's what RiseUp with ServiceNow is. RiseUp with ServiceNow is our commitment to you to fuel the ServiceNow talent ecosystem with 1 million skilled users by the end of 2024. For individuals, RiseUp creates equitable inroads to ServiceNow careers with clear growth tracks. For customers and for partners, RiseUp means that you'll be able to find the talent you need to achieve your ServiceNow business goals. We know that digital transformation depends on talent transformation, which means you need to have the right people with the right skills in the right roles. And RiseUp with ServiceNow is a framework to do that. We can leverage hundreds of online and instructor-led ServiceNow courses, as well as self-service best practice resources and role-based career journeys, as well as our high-touch human-led engagements. So that's RiseUp with ServiceNow in a nutshell. Remember, it's the initiative designed for individuals, customers, and partners to create more and better ServiceNow talent. So now let's talk about you. How do you, as an individual, get started on your personal RiseUp journey? Well, it all starts with Now Learning. Now Learning is ServiceNow's online experience platform, or LXP. You can create a free account, and from there, you can access hundreds of courses that range from a few minutes to a few days. Some of them are on demand, some of them are instructor-led, and this is where you can build your ServiceNow resume with courses, learning paths, career journeys, and even earn those certifications that you saw earlier in the session today. A common question that we get is, how much does this cost? And the answer is, it depends on what you want to do. So it's completely free to join Now Learning, and there are hundreds of free on-demand courses that you can get started with. Typically, for courses that lead to certifications, those will cost anywhere from $300 to $500 US to complete on demand, or $1,700 to $2,400 US for instructor-led versions. Sometimes you'll see additional voucher or certification maintenance fee costs. But if you recall, earlier I mentioned that 90% of certified users that we talked to said that their companies sponsored their certification. So when you join Now Learning, you also want to ensure that you're taking advantage of any training entitlements that your company might have for you. And I'm going to talk to you more about that in a minute. But first, the first call to action that I have for everyone on the call. The first call to action is to create a Now Learning account and earn your first micro certification, which is free. And my recommendation here is our 3-hour Welcome to ServiceNow course, which is great for those who are new to the platform, whether or not you plan to take any additional training. If you're in charge of training for your team, this is a great link to share throughout your organization to get people engaged with the Now platform. So for those of you who have already done this, you've already taken Welcome to ServiceNow, you're familiar with the platform, you've earned your micro certification. Have you explored our career journeys? Career journeys were only launched at this year's big ServiceNow conference called K23. And what these do is they take all the content that we have on Now Learning and they organize it into essential knowledge for each level of an industry standard role. So for example, a developer, an admin, a technical project manager, and more. You can gain not only ServiceNow skills and certifications, but also industry knowledge and soft skills that you need to succeed in the role at the job level that's tailored specifically to you. So to recap, to start your individual learning journey, join Now Learning and get started with Welcome to ServiceNow. For more advanced users, find out which career journey might be the best fit for you. Do you remember that earlier I mentioned 90% of certified users said their companies helped pay for that certification? Well, my next call to action is a critical step to ensure that you're taking advantage of any organization-sponsored training benefits. The way that you do that is by ensuring that your Now Learning account is linked to your company profile in Now Learning. And in this deck, I'll share a link with you with step-by-step directions on how to do this. But what you need to know is your organization's ServiceNow account number. It's kind of like the password that you need to unlock training benefits or use any training funds from your company. And you can get that account number by reaching out to your ServiceNow admin at your company or your ServiceNow account team. And if you're not sure about either of those, just create a case through Now Learning and we'll help connect you to the right person at your account. So for those of you who are already linked to your account, it's always good to have a conversation with your account administrators about what options for training and adoption might be available to you. So for example, we actually offer private courses for up to 16 students, and we also offer user training and adoption services. And depending on whether your account is signed up for ServiceNow Impact, which is our value realization program, you may actually already have access to free on-demand training and certification at Now Learning for you and your team. The best way, again, to find all that out is to link your account in Now Learning to your company using the directions that will be in this deck. All right, let's pause for a second and recap. We first talked about RiseUp with ServiceNow, our initiative to skill 1 million people in the ServiceNow ecosystem by the end of 2024. Then we talked about your personal ServiceNow learning journey. I gave you 2 calls to action there. 1, create your free Now Learning account and earn your first free micro certification in Welcome to ServiceNow. And 2, link your Now Learning account to your company to take advantage of training benefits. So while we started by talking about individual learners, I'm now going to speak to building your organization's ServiceNow talent strategy. Many of you here today represent customers who recently purchased ServiceNow or are investing in new products or lines of business. Just as you may have goals for your own ServiceNow career, your company has goals for its ServiceNow investment. And having a skilled workforce is absolutely critical to achieving those goals. A ServiceNow talent strategy means that your organization not only has people with the skills needed to run your ServiceNow deployment today, but it also means that your organization has a plan for how to develop those people over time and grow new people into ServiceNow careers as well. So ServiceNow offers tools on how to create your organization's talent strategy. For example, our playbooks, based on best practices from hundreds of customers, outline what roles are needed on your platform team. And then you can find learning paths in Now Learning that align to each of those roles on your platform team. These playbooks also talk about how to extend training to your users, who are going to be a key factor in your success or failure based on user adoption. So one link I'll leave you here today with is a link to our training bundles, which provide a starting point with key platform team roles, their associated learning paths, and a recommended number of learning credits required to train that team either through digital content or instructor-led training. So speaking of learning credits, I'm going to come back to that in just a minute because learning credits do play a key role in how organizations manage their training programs. But first, our next call to action. Call to action number 3. Determine your organization's future-proof ServiceNow talent strategy. A great way to start from scratch here is to leverage those training bundles that I mentioned. These bundles are based on industry research on the core platform team that successful companies have to run ServiceNow. Each role has a link to a learning path or a career journey that corresponds to that role. And then depending on the number of folks that you want to train and whether you prefer on-demand training or instructor-led training or a hybrid approach, you can calculate the projected cost for training your team. For those of you who might be already further along in your talent strategy journey, don't forget that there's more to ServiceNow success than the technical roles on your platform team. You may have hundreds or thousands or tens of thousands of users, and that could be your help desk agents, your requesters, and everyone in between who depend on ServiceNow to do their day-to-day work. And you depend on them to adopt the platform to drive long-term success. And don't forget, as you upskill your teams, you want to plan your talent hiring strategy as well. So these are all things that ServiceNow can help with. And for those of you at this stage, I recommend that you schedule a discovery call with your account team to discuss adoption services and learn about the trained talent pipeline that's available for hire. So let's pause here and let me check in with the team. I want you to now think about your company for a moment. What would you say best describes where your organization is at in its Rise Up with ServiceNow journey? So this is your organization's talent strategy. So would you say that you're just exploring? You're starting to think about what people and skills you need across your team to achieve your ServiceNow goals? Would you say that you're scaling? You've established your platform team and done some learning, but you don't have a cohesive organization-wide ServiceNow talent strategy just yet that accounts for future growth. Or are you already at the point where you're optimizing? You have a ServiceNow talent strategy and it incorporates internal skilling, user adoption, external hiring, plus people and processes in place to manage execution of that strategy. Let's see the answers coming in here. Looks like so far what I see a pretty even split across the three. Bunch of folks just exploring their talent strategy, a third of the folks scaling, and even a quarter of folks who have that, who are optimizing, who have that ServiceNow talent strategy in place. Again, the ServiceNow talent strategy is a key component of your digital transformation strategy. How do you drive success with the Now platform? It's through your people. So let me end this poll and share results here. And you can see, I love the even split because there's different challenges and opportunities at each of these stages and things that ServiceNow can support with no matter where you are in this journey. All right, with that, we will move on to talking about learning credits. I mentioned that we were going to come back to learning credits for a minute here. So learning credits are going to be key to how your organization manages its ServiceNow training programs. While an individual might buy training and Now Learning using a credit card, companies will typically make bulk purchases of learning credits through their ServiceNow account team. And then this way they can budget for, plan, assign, and track training in Now Learning. One learning credit equals $1 US, although with Impact, some discounts may apply. And remember, Impact is our customer value realization program. So for those of you who are going to be in charge of managing learning credits at your organization, we do offer free training in Now Learning on how to take on that very important role. And that brings me to your final call to action for the day. Manage your organization's learning credits. The first step to do this is to ensure that you have the right roles in place. We recognize that the same person who administers your company instance may not be the one to manage training for your organization. So we've created training administrator and learning credit manager roles to give you more control over how you manage learning credits at your organization. So if you're someone who's going to be responsible for learning credits or training for your team, check with your administrator to make sure you get that training admin or learning credit manager role. If you're an administrator who doesn't want to be responsible or shouldn't be responsible for learning credit management, make sure that you've delegated that responsibility to someone in your organization, someone who has taken the training about how to manage learning credits. Now, these roles, the learning credit manager and the training admin, these can be as hands-on or as hands-off as you'd like. So for example, you can create open learning credit pools that allow anyone in your company to use learning credits on the training that they need. Or you could turn on a feature that prompts requests to the admin whenever a user wants to use your learning credits. Or you can even assign people to training directly. And as an administrator, you can track the training and certification of people linked to your company's account. So don't forget that step, right? Remember, that was our second call to action, which is link users to your account. We saw where individuals could request that directly, but admins can also proactively add individuals. And just a note on that, we are exploring ways in the upcoming months to make sure that this linking process is as quick as possible for admins to get people engaged in learning even faster. So one more note about learning credits. The critical thing you need to know about them is that they expire after 1 year. So a key role of the training admin or the learning credit manager at your organization is to monitor credit usage and plan training well before expiration, especially if you're interested in instructor-led training or adoption services, which may need to be scheduled several months in advance. All right, so we've made it to the review. Today, we learned about RiseUp with ServiceNow and why talent transformation is so critical to your company's ServiceNow success. Then, we learned about how you as an individual can get started learning by creating a Now Learning account and linking it to your company's ServiceNow account. And then lastly, we learned about how organizations use learning credits to budget for and manage training at the company level. And if you're responsible for training your team or your company, explore our resources to make sure you have a training plan for your team. And then take the training in Now Learning to ensure you're ready to manage and distribute company learning credits before they expire. We covered a lot today, but if you run into any snags, we're here to help you. What you can do is simply submit a case in Now Learning, and our support team will respond, typically within 2 business days, to resolve your issue.
Thanks, Sarah and team. Great job. Wonderful questions from everybody. Hope this has been really helpful for you, and keep those questions coming. We will try to address all the questions when we send out the email, and they will all be included in the email information that you'll get out. So just a couple of next steps. Make sure you visit the customer community site, where we have a section just for net new customers, an onboarding section there with some other action items besides training. Of course, you'll want to visit the Now Learning site that Sarah has been talking about. And also, I just wanted to make you aware of some upcoming webinars that we have in our Welcome series. So in September, we'll be running our customization versus configuration webinar, which will help you determine how to manage that in your instance. The next one is help. We don't know what we don't know. That's for customers just getting started who have a lot of questions about different things and want to avoid gotchas and pitfalls and know what the best practices are. Then in November, we'll be running upgrade readiness. So we'll be teaching you some skills on how to remain always ready to upgrade when we have a new release. And then we'll also have one on instance management, and I call this care and feeding of your instance. And this is some really practical things about how to keep your instance up and running and with good performance. Sarah, so if you want to go to the next slide, we've got a QR code here that you can grab so you can join us at some of these future webinars. And we also do have meetups, and we have a lot of live on ServiceNow webinars that cover a multitude of topics. So this QR code will take you to that, and you can explore all of the other webinars that are available to you. So without further ado, thank you all for attending today. We really appreciate all the interaction. And, we look forward to continuing to engage with you as customers and or partners or whatever your role is with ServiceNow. So thank you for attending, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.